Tonight, the economy explodes as the U.S. turns a corner in the fight against COVID-19. Plus,
it's time to bring those troops home.
The end of America's forever war in Afghanistan after 2 decades is a signal for the return of the Taliban. And big government and big spending.
How do we pay for my jobs and family plan?
Give Senator Tim Scott his big moment.
It's a liberal wish list of big government waste, plus the biggest job-killing tax hikes in a generation.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
52 years ago, one man stayed behind, the astronaut who made history but never set foot on the moon. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
The American economy on the rebound. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. New numbers at tonight showing a lot of optimism. The U.S. economy growing at a rate of 6.4% in the first quarter of 2021. That is up more than 2% from the last quarter.
President Biden touted those gains last night in his primetime address. We're learning now the largest first quarter increase since the 1980s. Today, he's hitting the road trying to sell his bold and controversial agenda that would reshape the American economy and expand the size of the federal government.
As CBN's Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson reports tonight, those plans come with a steep price tag.
Could these numbers be signs of a post-COVID economic boom forecasted by many experts? While it certainly appears America is on its way to recovery, some fear major spending plans could possibly cause another breakdown.
America is on the move again.
Even with the economy on the rise, President Biden used his first address to the joint session of Congress to ask for trillions more to keep boosting it and create more jobs.
Now, I know some of you at home are wondering whether these jobs are for you. The American Jobs Plan is a blue-collar blueprint to build America. That's what it is.
Biden also laid out plans for universal pre-K, paid family leave, and 2 years free tuition at community colleges.
We also need to make a once-in-a-generation investment in our families and our children.
His plans come with a price tag of over $4 trillion in new spending that he claims will be paid for by corporations and America's wealthiest taxpayers.
I will not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000. We're only going to affect 0.3% of all Americans by that action.
Republicans are skeptical.
I mean, I think the American people are going to need to rise up and say this is not what we had in mind.
Russell Vought, a former President Trump appointee, believes the debt from these plans will cost future generations.
So government's either going to raise taxes to pay for it, and he has substantial increases in taxes to be able to pay for it. Over time, it could inflate away, and that's a tax on poor people and individuals who are on fixed income.
Trump tried infrastructure too, but Vought says Democrats wouldn't get on board unless it included a corporate tax increase.
They have no desire to actually fix infrastructure, and I would be supportive of a common sense bill to do that. This bill that they have put forward, their $2 trillion bill, is only about 7% infrastructure, real infrastructure.
With the Senate filibuster still in place, the fate of President Biden's agenda depends on working with Senate Republicans, or not much will get done legislatively. Reporting from Virginia, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
And here with us now for more is Mark Hamrick, a senior economic analyst at Bankrate.com. Mark, thank you so much for joining us this evening. First question, what accounts for this explosion in the economy that we're seeing? Is this the result of the trillions of dollars in stimulus, or what's your take?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you open the fire hoses, there's going to be water on the floor, and that's the spending that we're seeing coming from the federal government. Also, the reopening of the economy, federal stimulus dollars helping to line people's wallets and purses. That's being spent largely on goods. And so not only do we have very strong GDP reported for the first quarter of the year, we're expecting to see strong numbers for the current quarter and then for the full year as well. So this is the work and the benefit of the reopening of the economy, as well as all the federal stimulus and relief payments that have gone out there.
Mark, jobless numbers are down significantly over past months. I feel like we're on repeat, but is this a sign that we've turned the corner in the pandemic?
Absolutely. And, it's nice to be able to repeat something that's positive, John and Jenna, right? Because I do feel as if people were associating me with some of the negative news that we had to talk about last year as well. But listen, this was earned the hard way, right? Through the heartbreak of the pandemic that was both economic and with lives and health. And now we're on the other side of that. And the presumption is that it should only get better from here. And so when we see jobless claims not as high as before, still on a weekly basis, the new claims are about twice what we would have seen before the pandemic, and still 16 million Americans on some form of unemployment assistance. We're not out of the woods yet in the sense of the price being paid for that downturn.
President Biden last night outlined more multi-trillion-dollar plans in that primetime address. Could printing that amount of money, Mark, lead to inflation? Do you have any concerns on that?
Well, we're already seeing, first of all, inflation right now, and the thought is that this is short-term, more about the pains of reopening the economy. It is an assumption that isn't yet backed by the judgment of Congress and the president that money would be printed, because the president's also proposing to pay for some of the programs that he's talking about. So not everything here would be a result of further exacerbation of debt and deficits, but that concern also is also here at the moment. It's just that it's not been primary as a concern on the minds of elected officials in Washington, and that holds true for members of both parties.
Mark, President Biden last night talked about the nearly 1.5 million jobs added since he's taken office. Analysts are talking about a so-called Biden boom, but he also took aim at trickle-down economics. What's your take on that?
Well, I think there should be credit to go all around, because there were a series of stimulus or relief measures that were passed last year while President Trump was in office, and that was also obviously with the approval of the House and Senate, and now we're into the new administration. So I think both share credit, but obviously the buck stops at the White House, and there is one president in office right now. The economy is going to boom this year, barring the tremendously unforeseen. And we're also, as you know, sort of whether we want to or not, slowly moving into the next midterm election cycle, and whether Americans will judge that performance of the economy to be sufficient and perhaps worthy of credit of the Democrats will remain to be seen, and also how they prioritize a range of issues, not just the economy.
All right. Senior economic analyst and Washington bureau chief at Bankrate, Mark Hamrick, thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you.
Turning overseas, as the U.S. military prepares to wind down its presence in Afghanistan later this year, the Taliban is already ramping up.
A top commander issuing this threat: stick to the May 1st deadline or face the consequences. National security correspondent Caitlin Burke has the story. And Caitlin, the Taliban is starting to sound a lot more confident.
That's right, more confident and powerful. The concern right now is for the safety of our troops, because Taliban attacks in country are on the rise.
His message: if something happens, it will be unfortunate for the U.S. This Taliban commander received early release from prison as a part of the U.S. Taliban deal. Now, back on the front lines, he does not accept Biden's new September 11th deadline. The U.S. is beefing up security around the withdrawing troops, and the Pentagon says they're prepared to meet any resistance the Taliban may present.
It's entirely possible that there will be a temporary increase of some ground forces and enablers, not just for force protection, but also for logistical and engineering support that will have to go into Afghanistan to help us make sure this drawdown gets done on the timeline and in a safe, orderly way.
Meanwhile, President Biden seems resolute. In his speech to Congress Wednesday night, he said the mission in Afghanistan was accomplished and the threat to the U.S. removed.
We went to Afghanistan to get the terrorists who attacked us on 9/11, and we delivered justice to bin Laden. We degraded the terrorist threat of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, and after 20 years of valor, and sacrifice, it's time to bring those troops home.
Some experts believe history will prove him wrong.
Either fight them here or wait and fight them near your shores.
President Biden says the U.S. will maintain a diplomatic and humanitarian presence in Afghanistan and will remain vigilant against any threats to the United States, wherever they may come from. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Caitlin. And here with us now is Michael O'Hanlon, Senior Fellow at the Brookings Institution. It's so good to have you with us this evening, Michael. A lot to talk about, of course, on the international stage, starting with Afghanistan and the longest war, America's longest war. Does the U.S. have a plan for what happens after U.S. troops pull out?
Jenna, I'm afraid not, and I'm very worried. My guess is we'll limp our way towards an alternative counterterrorism strategy that prevents the possibility of another 9/11, but it will be harder than President Biden's implying, and it will certainly not be good for our Afghan friends, for religious minorities, for intellectuals, for women. So that's my concern.
Well, as Caitlin mentioned in her report, the Taliban appears emboldened by the prospect of U.S. troops leaving the region. Michael, will ending the war in Afghanistan create a terrorist breeding ground like we saw with the rise of ISIS when the United States pulled out of Iraq?
Yeah, I'm worried about that. My expectation is that what will happen is an intensified civil war that no one will win quickly. And the Taliban may have a bit of the upper hand, especially in the south and the east, where the Pashtun ethnic group, which is the group from which almost all Taliban come, is predominant. And in the north, where other groups, Tajik, Uzbek, Hazara, are more common, there will probably be the consolidation of an alternative territory and perhaps even a de facto second country. And the war will continue over an extended period of time in various pockets of the country. What that means is that there will be chaos and therefore opportunity for extremist groups to move in. Now, you know, they may not be huge sanctuaries. We may be able to keep an eye on them, however imperfectly, from the Indian Ocean or from drones flying out of the Middle East or from, you know, Tajikistan, for example. But it will be a much longer range kind of effort. And there will be more opportunity, as I expect things to happen, for terrorist groups to at least establish small sanctuaries. Probably not enough to launch another 9/11. But I just am not clear why we need to take that risk when the U.S. force presence had already been reduced more than 95% from its peak.
Michael, while we have you, we want to talk about the president's foreign policy with China. Last night he told China's president that the U.S. isn't looking for conflict, but, quote, will defend America's interests across the board. What does that statement tell you?
You know, I think at a rhetorical level, the Biden team has a pretty good framework for how to think about China. They want to compete where necessary, cooperate where possible, and confront if and when absolutely unavoidable. So compete, cooperate, confront. And that's not a bad framework because it does break down the relationship and try to say we're not going to go in any one direction. We're going to try to minimize the risk of war, of course. But it doesn't really answer specific questions like what to do about Hong Kong, what to do about the Uyghur population, what if China attacks Taiwan. So at a broad rhetorical and conceptual level, it's fine. At a implementation level, it doesn't really solve that many problems for you. The good news is a lot of the Biden team's pretty smart people. We've seen Nicholas Burns recently announced as a likely ambassador to China. Kurt Campbell is very strong at the National Security Council. So there are some good people on implementation, but that's what it's going to boil down to.
Compete, cooperate, and confront. Let's talk about competition. President Biden also said Americans are too busy competing with each other, failing to recognize we're in a competition with China and the rest of the world to win the 21st century. Do you agree with that? And how do you rate where we are in that race?
Yeah, I guess I do agree with that. I think a lot of us would agree with that. The bigger debate in the United States, as I see it, and going back to your previous packages today, is what to do about it. And at what scale and with what role for government and what role for taxes. But I think we tend to recognize that our country is, you know, getting pulled apart in many ways at a political level and at an economic level. And so for that reason, I support elements of the Biden renewal packages, maybe not all. For example, I think the infrastructure, the sort of the physical infrastructure part is obviously an area of considerable agreement. The human infrastructure part is more debatable and probably should be debated separately. I'm a little concerned about putting all these things into big packages. I'm not sure that's really going to bring us together. As we've just seen in your previous discussions with other guests, it tends to reinforce the political trench lines. So we'll see Michael, if Joe Biden, who's a nice guy and been around a long time and a lot of friends on both sides of the aisle, if he can really be that bridge maker or not.
All right, we will see. Michael Hamlin with the Brookings Institution. Good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you very much.
Coming up, Senator Tim Scott's moment in the spotlight, reaction to his role giving the Republican rebuttal, and what it could mean for the future of the GOP.
Introducing the CBN Bible from cbn.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN Newswatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN Newswatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Welcome back. Well, for some last night, it wasn't President Biden, but Senator Tim Scott who stole the show. Scott delivering the GOP response after the president's address to Congress.
Scott, who's working on police reform with Democrats, said Republicans are willing to cross the aisle on common sense legislation, though he criticized President Biden's trillion-dollar infrastructure plan is going too far.
They won't even build bridges to build bridges. Less than 6% of the president's plan goes to roads and bridges. It's a liberal wish list of big government waste, plus the biggest job-killing tax hikes in a generation.
Joining us now is Iowa Congresswoman Ashley Henson. Congresswoman Henson, thank you for being on Faith Nation. Your fellow Republican, Senator Tim Scott, gave a rebuttal to Biden's address to the joint session last night. How would you rate his performance, and what stood out to you most?
Well, I think the thing that stood out to me the most was it was really a true competing vision, right? You had hope and faith and prosperity as the message that Senator Scott delivered last night, common sense, common ground. And I thought that was very inspiring. And I sat in the chamber last night and listened to President Biden's address, and I heard more about the heavy hand of government, the intrusion of government into our lives. So two very competing versions of our country's future. And I think Senator Scott did an impeccable job in laying out his experience, laying out the true American dream. And I was inspired by what he had to say.
Congresswoman, what does Senator Scott's moment mean for him and for the direction of the party in 2022?
Well, I think it sets the stage. It tells our story that the Republican Party is a big tent. We have amazing stories to tell about the people who have, come from rags to riches, truly. He likes to tell his story, but there are those kinds of stories across the country. You've got, obviously, African-American men and women who are stepping up to run, minorities, veterans, every person who flipped a House seat and won in the new class of Republicans in 2022 in Congress was either a woman, a veteran, or a minority. So I take from Senator Scott's message last night that anybody can do this job, anybody can live the American dream, and I think that's an inspiring message for our party heading into 2022 and beyond.
Congresswoman, as you said, you were in the chamber last night during the president's speech. Is there any area in which you think Republicans and Democrats can coalesce? Did you hear anything where you felt like bipartisanship could be accomplished?
Well, I do still think there's room to work together on a bipartisan infrastructure package. Obviously, for me, it's concerning that the spending spigot is truly on. $1.8 trillion was the package price tag of what he proposed last night, $1.9 trillion earlier this spring. So I kept hearing cha-ching, which is concerning to me. So I think we need to retool, get back to focusing on the common sense and the common ground, as Senator Scott talked about last night, and come up with real solutions for hardworking families and taxpayers in this country. That's what we were sent to Washington to do. And I think most people want to see the Democrats who do have control of Congress right now welcome in Republicans and work together to accomplish these goals. So I'm hopeful, although last night's message was very clear to me that they just want more government at the expense of small business, and I don't think that's the right plan for America.
Well, you said earlier that you mentioned the heavy hand of government. It was decades ago now that President Bill Clinton declared the era of big government is over. Congresswoman, what do you think when you hear that? Is big government back?
I think under Biden's administration, big government is back. He seemingly has a blank checkbook when you talk about these proposals that are filled with liberal wish list items. What I heard last night was free stuff and a lot of fluff coming out of that speech. And it is concerning to me. We need to be reining in our spending. We need to be actually addressing the crisis at the border. And we need to be focusing on the needs of rural America. And I just thought he missed all three of those marks last night in his address and the direction he wants to take our country. So my priority is going to be coming to the table on all of those issues, making sure we can actually accomplish those things. But clearly we heard that President Biden's plan is more government in Americans' lives. I was concerned about his comments about the Constitution. He said no amendment to the Constitution is absolute, in essence, and that frightened me because what we've seen the first few months in Congress has been an assault on our constitutional rights and our values. So I'm definitely concerned about that, and will continue to push back against anyone who wants to tear apart our Constitution.
All right, Congresswoman Ashley Henson of Iowa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Happily, Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Saturday night at 6 on the CBN News Channel. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Former Florida Congressman and retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Allen West is now the chairman of the Texas Republican Party.
He tells CBN News he thinks President Biden's talk of unity is code for conformity and pushing a progressive agenda.
What it really is conformity to a leftist ideological agenda and their narrative. What Joe Biden has done in his first 100 days, he's put Americans out of work. He's decimated our oil and gas industry, made us energy dependent, not independent. He has torn down our national security and foreign policy standing. And worst of all, he has abdicated his role and responsibility to provide sovereignty for the United States of America and the great state of Texas by implementing an open borders policy.
The GOP party leader also thinks Democrats are pushing to change election law to keep from losing Congress in 2022.
In his first midterm election back in 1994, Bill Clinton lost 54 congressional seats. In his first midterm election cycle in 2010, Barack Obama lost 63 congressional seats. So that's why they came up with H.R. 1, which is the federalizing of our elections, to try to make sure that they could stay in power by no more voter ID, no voter registration rolls, basically allowing illegals to vote, same-day voter registration and voting. So they know what is going to happen in 2022, so they're trying to get as much passed through. Thank God we have the filibuster, but still they may try to lift the filibuster in order to get their agenda through.
Chairman of the Texas Republican Party, Allen West, and we will be right back after this.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link. Tuesday morning at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Finally tonight, a final mission for an astronaut who was part of the historic Apollo 11 moon landing. Michael Collins passed away this week at the age of 90.
Collins, the pilot for the Apollo mission, actually never stepped foot on the moon himself.
50 or 60 years from now, I think we'll be doing amazing things that we're not able to predict with any accuracy whatsoever today. People have this curiosity.
Captured the moment by saying he had the world in his window. Just a legend there in NASA.
Indeed.
And avionics.
Indeed. All right, have a great night.